Namaste. You know, here's a very interesting doubt. You can share it with your friends if you want to show your cleverness. There are days and nights of Brahma. Each one lasts a certain length of time. Now, if this is the case, in eternity, was there not a first day of Brahma? The only possible answer to that is that there can't have been a first, and therefore they must be going on simultaneously. And somehow it's our perception that makes them that way. This is an intellectual game, and I'm not going to pursue it further. But the mind throws up all sorts of doubts, and the answer to doubt, there's only one: love. I have found, because doubt used to be a part of my nature, that by loving God, you can't doubt. That's the one firm, fixed thing in the universe, His love and His bliss. Krishna says in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the 14th stanza, "Though acting, I am without attachments, nor do I desire any particular outcome from or any activity." I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Nor do I desire any particular outcome from any activity. He similarly, who is one with me and identified with my nature, is unfettered by the slightest desire for the fruits of action. And this is a very important passage. You know, there's a saying, a poem of William Blake in the West. It's to see eternity in an hourglass and infinity in a grain of sand. And somehow everything is contained in the least little thing, and the least little thing is contained in everything. And this whole universe is so very different from the way we imagine it. So what we need to do then is realize that God is able to do so much because He really is at the center of everything. He has no desire, He has no attachment. We have to become like that. And to be without attachment means not to be attached to time even. Not to think that we grow old or that we're born young. We come back again and again and again. But it's all the same old repeated cycle until finally we get out of this delusion altogether and find God. So what Krishna is saying in a practical way, because his teachings, all truths, if they're infinite, they're also infinitesimal. The greatest truth is also true for the smallest atom in the universe. And if we have this attitude of complete non-attachment, complete indifference to what happens, the natural thought, bringing it down to a practical level, is that we will not do anything. In fact, there are two aspects to creation, and Krishna says it in an earlier sloka that we have gone through already. He says, "From the beginning I designated two paths to God. The one is wisdom, the other is action." And what he's saying is, and it's true in the day of Brahma, it's true in the night of Brahma, I throw myself out and I bring myself in. And you have that in all levels of life. There's action, there is inaction. Both paths are right. The nature of bliss, in the Shastras they speak of the reason that God created everything was that he might enjoy himself through many. But I would tie it also into this particular teaching that we're discussing right now, which is that the reason he creates everything is that it is the very nature of bliss to want to expand itself. And that nature is twofold, because everything is twofold. Even when you go beyond creation, there's the potential for rising and falling, for duality. It doesn't exist at that time, and yet it does exist. In this whole show, when you go beyond time and space, and you go beyond duality and you become trigunarahitam, as they put it, you find that even in that state, both states are real. Everything exists, whether as potential or as actuality. And so this tendency to expand outwardly, there's a beautiful story in Portugal, in the town of Fatima. Well, it was a village, really, at that time. It was 1917. And 3 little children had a vision of the Divine Mother as Mother Mary. The Catholics think of her as a specific person. I suspect that it is the Divine Mother taking that form. Because in Medjugorje, where I went just a few months ago, in Croatia, I think it is, anyway, over there somewhere in that Yugoslavia area, the Virgin Mary has been appearing to these young people. They're not all so young anymore because it was many years ago that she began, but she still appears. And she says that I am the mother of all people, the whole human race. Well, that's not just the Mother Mary then, it must be the Divine Mother aspect of God. Anyway, these 2 children, Jacinta and Mario, I think, they, in seeing this vision, Mario, they had a vision of God suffering because of all the souls in hell. And Jacinta, her whole dedication was to helping those people in hell. But Mario felt so badly for poor God that he was ignored by so many people. And you have those 2 paths right there. Naturally, human beings will be attracted to Jacinta because she's thinking of them. But Mario's part is very sweet, and I found myself even more inspired by him because his whole goal was to comfort God. They died very young, but they expressed in themselves also this twofold aspect of the spiritual path. The one is enjoying that bliss, taking it inside, wisdom, and the other is expanding that bliss outwardly, which is action. When you act, you should act with the thought that you are expanding bliss outwardly. It isn't that you please God. God is always pleased. He's always in bliss. But when you act in that way, you become a part of that pleasure by expanding your bliss. This is very important because many people, I myself, the reason that I am so keen on helping people is because I'm aware of all the suffering in this world. But in truth, the only way I can help them is to expand my bliss. You can't get out there and help them if you are pulled down. You can't, if a person is drowning, it won't help him if you get in the water and drown with him. You have to bring him back, whether with a life preserver or whatever you can do to bring him out of that water. So when people are suffering, the real path of karma yoga is not to concern yourself with making this a better world. So many people are trying, what with ecology and all these ways. Somebody said to me many years ago, Ananda should take an interest in the question of ecology. And I answered him, listen, if everybody in the world lived the way we do, there wouldn't be no need to concern ourselves with ecology. People would live naturally in tune with nature. But many people get some cause. Really, it's an excuse. It's easier to do that than to spread divine consciousness. And so you will see them fix on things like, I remember I was at a peace conference in Assisi recently, and I said that, I'm not sure that peace is what people want. You notice that people after a war, you'd think they'd be so fed up with the war they'd never think about it anymore. Instead, all the novels that come out are about the war and about the suffering that people go through. There is some quirk in human nature that is attracted to pain and suffering and so on. And in fact, when people have had suffering times, they will often spend a lot of time talking about that. And if they have a good time, they often think about the suffering, and in the suffering they often think about the good times. I told that story of a time I went to Carnegie Hall. I had bought a dictation machine that day, and the salesman recorded it into it and found that it worked. So when I was at this concert at not Carnegie Hall, it was the Metropolitan something. Anyway, Raphael Kubeletz, a famous conductor, whom incidentally I gave Kriya in Australia in 1958. But anyway, he was conducting Smetana's Moldau. And I thought between two movements that perhaps my little dictation machine, which I would normally hold up close to my mouth, I wondered how far it would record. So I pushed the button to see if I could record the symphony. Well, I pushed the wrong button. And suddenly filling the entire hall, because I turned it up high, hoping that way I would be able to get the best sound from a distance. Suddenly this voice came out, "Hello, testing, 1, 2. So help me, got up to 4 before I finally found the button to turn it off, and the conductor whirled around, and it was an intensely embarrassing moment for me. But the amusing thing was that in that embarrassment, there was still that thought, what a good story this will make. So you find opposites in each other. In pleasure, there is pain, the certain pain that I will lose this, the certain pain of thinking that well, but tomorrow will it be the same, and so on. And in pain, there is a certain amount of pleasure. What a good story I'll have to tell. I bet nobody's suffered like this before, and that makes me good. All sorts of things people have. But the thing is that these two aspects of the two paths that God has given, they're universal. You find this between men and women too. Men's nature is more to go outward. Women's is more to be inward. Men want to think what they can conquer. Women like to think in terms of more their state of consciousness. Which is better? Neither is better. They're all this balance each other out. Men are no better than women. Women are no better than men. Pain, in fact, is no better than happiness. The only thing that is beyond duality is bliss itself and divine love itself. Only those two, because they are of the Spirit. Beyond that, everything in this world has its opposites. Now, when Krishna says he's indifferent to pain and pleasure, to the dualities, we must understand that that indifference actually, in a practical way, helps us in our daily life. As I said, everything in the Gita has very practical meanings also. So let us say that you are working at a job. You can't be indifferent in the sense that Krishna speaks of here, but you do have to be indifferent to the outcome if you want to do a good job. If you're there wondering how you can do the best job possible and hoping that the boss will be pleased, there'll come some sort of disturbance in your mind where you won't see clearly what you are trying to do. If you are completely detached, and that's why he's speaking of nishkam karma, non-attachment, non-desire for the fruits of your action, then you can act with a free consciousness. If you have desire for the fruits, you will be disturbing your positive effort with waves. Will it work? Will it not work? Will people like it? Will people not like it? All these waves prevent you from being able to put your energy one-pointedly into anything you do. The secret of success is actually non-attachment to the fruits, because the other secret of success is concentration. And you can't concentrate deeply and clearly if your mind is disturbed with thinking, will it work, will it not work, and so on. So there has to be in your consciousness this non-attachment. And Krishna, I don't know if in translating this the word indifference is right, but it's the best word I could think of. I edited this, but I don't know the Sanskrit, and so I edited it from the English. It seemed to me the best possible word, but there is this doubt. It is an indifference in one sense, because it's acceptance. But acceptance wouldn't work either, so we're limited by language. Anyway, the thing is that if you're not attached to the fruits, then you can put all your energy, all your eggs in one basket, you could say. All your energy can flow in a focused direction toward the success that you're trying to achieve. And this is true for anything that you try to do. I turn it into a business metaphor because that's the sort of thing people have to live with every day. But in your relationships, in your ambitions. In other words, for example, I used to want to be a playwright, and I have written several plays and movies and things. But what I have found is that if I don't if I don't care whether the outcome is just right or wrong, I find myself not disturbed by all that worry of the outcome. Then I can put my entire mind on the particular moment that I'm working. An artist, well, you don't really judge a work of art, shouldn't really judge a work of art while it's still in progress. What you need to do is wait until he's finished, and then you know what he's trying to do. So this is another aspect of it, that you will be what you are trying to do only when you've reached the end of it. Then, when you finish your work, then you can say, this is why, again, it says in the Gita, my children, the Kauravas and the Pandavas on the field of battle, what did they? What did they do? It's a past tense thing. It's a introspection. That's when introspection comes. So remember, if you want to be good at anything, let God do it through you. You don't do it yourself. Joy to you.